Good morning. This is Merlin Gonzalez here live in Indianapolis at the Faith, Hope, and Love Community um, headquarters. And today, actually, it's already the 98th version or 98th issue of the FHL Table Talk. So we started in 2015, and now, we are 2023. So that's 8 years running every month, and we're happy to share that with you. So let's start with prayer, and then I will give you more updates as far as what's going on with Faith, Hope, and Love. Lord, we give you thanks today. Thank you for this day. Thank you, Lord, for this warm fall, beautiful leaves, and Lord, for keeping us safe and being with us. Pray, Lord, that you guide this conversation, and Lord, that you will speak to us and speak through us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So I'm here with Ryan, Ryan Swadley, and he will introduce himself soon. But I just want to give you an update as far as what happened in the past few weeks, actually. I was in Curacao when I did the 97th table talk. And yeah, it was hot there. So it's good to be back home. So in Curacao, actually, we talked to the government there, and the Speaker of the House, which is the second in command in the entire country, agreed to work with Faith, Hope, and Love, and also the group of pastors there, as far as what can church do to help in the economy, in the social life of the residents of Curacao. So we're excited regarding that. So we're working with businesses, government, and also, of course, churches. In Dominican Republic, you probably have seen some of my postings on Facebook. I was blessed to speak and share the vision of Faith, Hope, and Love to literally 500 pastors. Spoke through media and also in person to thousands of people in Dominican Republic. Again, with regards to atmosphere changer, and what I mean with that is that we're basically wanting to change the culture, the mindset of individuals. Through through the innovative, approach, and that's what we're going to talk about today, which is SALTview, the one of the innovation of Faith, Hope, and Love. Also locally now, we have new Direction Church on East 38th Street. They had their first missional neighborhood United Food Mission food delivery last month, and then next week they're going to do another food deliveries through Faith, Hope, and Love, and through our United Food Missions. And this time there will be like I think 50 or 30 additional individuals. So again, this the United Food Mission division of Faith, Hope, and Love actually deliver nutritious food to the homebound people who are not able, for many reasons, to leave their house, but they still need the services of food pantry. So we're working with that's one of our new missional neighborhood hub or pickup sites for food delivery. Also, we're working with Dip In. That's a diabetes improvement program in Indiana. So it's called Dip In here in Indiana, and that has something to do with living a healthy lifestyle and maybe even prevention for pre-diabetic individuals. So we're working with them through nutritional food, through the our program with again, this is program that's put together by IU Health, I believe. So the training for this is this coming Saturday afternoon here at FHL offices. Last night we were at Progressive Life Ministries, the church that we have been consulting for almost a year now in building a missional community. What that means is that we train them how they can help another existing food pantry in their own neighborhood and then build that missional community. So we continue to work with them in the training and also mobilizing their people. And then tonight we have two missional food pantries. One here in Indianapolis at Cross Church, and we're actually doing the beta test there as far as the SALTview software that we're going to talk about today. And then one in Noblesville. So simultaneously we have two missional food pantries, and then also tonight at Cross Church there will be two trainees, one from Fort Wayne and one from Elkhart, who will be visiting the Cross Church, so that this is what we call the on-the-job training, so they will learn. So we have some more things that we want to talk about. So let's get right to our special guest today, Ryan Swadley. Ryan, could you give us, an introduction, who you are, and what company you represent?
First of all, Merlin, thanks for having me on the show today. Very excited to be here and join and talk to all your viewers about this exciting launch of SALTview software. I'm Ryan Swadley with DidgeBridge. I'm the co-founder and chief innovation officer of DidgeBridge. And DidgeBridge primarily is a company that works with, nonprofits is one, but also corporate and small businesses. We're I think it's 23-year company doing Web 3.0, digital marketing strategy, growth, and consulting. And this was an exciting time, I think, in the time for having this show with especially tonight, what's going on, to be on the show with all this happening at SALTview. So I'm excited to get into it on this this episode.
Yeah. Well, Ryan is a friend of mine, and you want to tell them how we met each other, and we have a long history for about 20 years.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, going back to the beginning of Faith, Hope, and Love, even before that, Merlin and I met, even back to my college years. And we continued to, work together on different visions.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, I saw you had a big heart for the community and for mission in your backyard, which I think where Faith, Hope, and Love started. And even in those days, we helped you. We worked together on marketing and strategy and plans for how we could help really expand the footprint of Faith, Hope, and Love. And then over time, all the different people you helped, it's just been amazing to see the journey along the way. And I think you always talk about transforming lives as part of your slogan, which you've definitely done that.
Yeah.
And it just continues to always amaze me, all you accomplished in this, short period of time, and also longer now looking back on it, because time goes by so fast.
Yeah. You were just graduating from Purdue when I first met you back in Lafayette. So regarding the SALTview, could you tell our viewers as far as why you decided to take on this software development, and what you think about the features of what you're creating?
Interesting enough, it started out with another conversation with you about when I asked you how you're currently doing things, working with your training and leadership you were offering to different food pantries. And I said, well, is there ways to automate those things? And how much of that's manual? And then we got in the conversation about how reporting and analytics affects outcomes, and how it'd be easier to be able to empower and equip, especially small pantries, with more technological tools. And that's what really focused on the conversation, say, hey, how can we help not just address food insecurity, but also at the end of the day, address the cycles of poverty related to food insecurity, and be able to do that through the use of technology and the latest ways to make it easy. Because we knew not everything was technical, so we want to make a very user-friendly experience for the UI and the ability. You asked about features, just to make it really no training required and a really low learning curve, so anybody can do it, right? And that's part of making technology. If it doesn't work, well, if it's too hard to use, or there's a lot of training involved, we want to reduce that and make it just kind of a situation where anybody from, I mean, just a person that knows how to, not a coder, someone like that, or you have to learn any code, that you can do it all with, well, getting started. Like our group of pantries we're with now, they've done it with a very low, I think, entry level, any type of, you can just use Word.
Right.
You can even do it.
Yeah, and just to give you an introduction or just a background of why I thought about developing this software. As you know, Faith, Hope, and Love is an organization that started doing food pantries, helping people in need, is what Ryan mentioned. And then it evolved into like, how can we help more people? So one organization has its limitation, but if we can train and if you would disciple the community, the churches who have food pantries, or even community-based food pantries, then we can help more people. But beyond giving food, which is part of the culture change that we're trying to do, part of atmosphere, changing the atmosphere, the spiritual, and also the economic and social atmosphere of our society, is that we need to understand the deeper needs of individuals. And we used Excel before. We're still using it now, but there are disadvantages on that. It helps. We can actually look at the reports and analyze it and make good data-based decision making, especially for the churches, for their mission. They can. So with that, Ryan, you are kind of new in the food security field. You heard about it, and then as you went deeper in this project, what have you seen some of the gaps in some food pantries?
Well, one of the things we did from the beginning, even before developing one line of code, is we went through a process of visiting multiple food pantries and seeing from top down, and even giving out food from every task that was involved in it, to see where could we improve processes and what gaps existed. And that also included the training and volunteers and how all the operations worked, from the time they received, the recipients received food, and from the time that there was follow-up and other things like that after the fact. Because it doesn't I learned the whole life cycle during that time. It just doesn't start there. There's a lot of planning even the night before, and how in particular how things even get labeled. So understand the whole process of the life cycle during a small food pantry was instrumental in helping develop the software, because through that research over a year, we looked at that, and then we applied that to code and ways to address those kind of challenges we thought would streamline operations, and where were the areas of need. And in particular, when I talked about data, I was like, okay, if we collect the right data, if people don't have easy access to that data, how valuable is that data, right? So data tells a story, and the reason you want to tell a story is for a purpose, and this purpose was to help the smaller pantries not just compete and have more resources that they may sometimes lack compared to larger organizations with more support and funding behind them, but also have the ability then to apply that to get fundraising, things related to fundraising, getting grant money, and having the ability then to tell that story
Mhm.
through the data to secure those funds, we thought would be really a game changer in this whole process, which really wasn't about the technology. And talking to Merlin about this, he's probably said in this, many of these episodes, it's not about food, it's about people. So that's just a byproduct of it. And we just want to allow through these use of new applied tools and now in order to do that, so we can still, at the end of the day, fulfill the ultimate mission.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with regards to, just giving you again another background as far as food pantries, uh, the hierarchy, if you would, as far as the food pantries is concerned, is that it starts with, of course, the donors. So you do have big donors, the big box donors and manufacturers, even farmers, and also distributors. Then they donate, or maybe they even sell to food banks. So food banks, by definition, are where you deposit, if you would, the food, donated food, and then food pantries go to food bank. So food banks are the wholesalers, and then food pantries are the retailers, and that's the niche of food pantries, is that since they are the retailers, if you would, in this charitable food distribution, they are in direct contact with the public. So now they can really understand why a person is needing the services of food pantry, or what are the causes, or what are things that they can do to help the person to become more sustainable. But before we go dive into that, which is part of the software, uh, the SALTview software. So tell us what's the acronym for SALTview.
Well, SALTview software, it stands for, in basically taking this, what I mentioned earlier about taking it through the process. We looked at that and said, what would be a good name for this? And really we were searching for a solution. So at the end of the day, we decided a good name, particularly for this software, would be Solution, Accountability, Leadership, and Training. And that's what SALT stands for as an acronym, because it was designed around a way to really focus on the areas that the software was meant for, which is equipping with the data, back to what I said earlier about telling the story, and also offering quick access reports. So that's where the SALT name came from.
Uh-huh. And then also, SALT, from the Christian point of view, has a connotation of preservation.
Yep.
So it could be preservation of life. Also, if you look at salt, it also give more flavor to life. If you are a cook, you just put some salt, and then you can preserve food, and at the same time, it enhances the taste of the food. So there's a lot of meaning regarding why we selected salt. So again, for the food pantry, if you are just starting a food pantry, you know what it takes to start a food pantry. It's not easy. It's like really starting a restaurant, a small restaurant, or a small grocery store. You need to have shelving, you need to have freezer, you need to have volunteers, employees if needed, you need to have a location, you need to have licenses and certificates, and that's why training is important. But most of the time, food pantries, especially the small to medium-sized food pantries, they just do it on their own, and they learn as they go, and so the learning curve is a little longer, and that's why Faith, Hope, and Love, 15 years ago, we thought about training, because training is the key for successful and for the sustainability of food pantries. So from that point of view, Ryan, so let's talk more about the processes. You talk about the processes as far as the small food pantry, the startup of a small food pantry, And after all, SALTview is also a food pantry management software. So if I am a food pantry, why would from the process point of view, how can SALTview help me get started and stay on track?
That's definitely a good question. Interesting enough, each food pantry, well, as we all know, isn't the exact same. They don't have the same amount of staff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the same structure.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they have processes in place. Part of what we looked at in that case is like, what can we do to do things like streamline the operations? Like, is there too many cars out there waiting to get served?
Mm-hmm.
And then is there ways to help? Well, sometimes people come there and say, here's my order. And they hand like a phone to somebody, say, hey, here's my order. And how do we kind of look at that as a process as a whole and make it more a systematic approach to how we can improve upon things? And that also starts with the volunteers
Mm-hmm.
and their level of training. So I know you do this a lot with like the different pantries you guys work with at Faith Hope and Love. So you've learned a lot over time about how to really equip them the resources to. Sometimes there's volunteers, and volunteers have potential turnover, and then they have to quickly be able to prepare a next person for that. So from just a SALTview perspective, we addressed that back to the user interface perspective, that there wasn't so much of a looking at from a user interface. It's almost like if you ever seen people at a restaurant and they're taking order, they got a lot of people waiting in line, and they're trying to make the line shorter. They have like a screen. They can just quickly, what's your order? Press on a screen, tap a few places, and then boom, they submit your order, and it goes, and then the cooks start doing your order, and that streamlines other people waiting in line. So we looked at, from a pantry perspective, how can we use tools like a very easy to use visual interface that had, well, people use their phones all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're always tapping on their phones, and having the ability to use kind of key things we learned about people using these devices, smartphones all the time, and then apply that to even though it's basically like a web application, how we'd apply that same type of easy to learn
Mm-hmm.
experience, any of non-technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
from that perspective, it was applied to the software that even the feedback we're getting now with our first groups of pantries, they're very excited about telling us how easy it is to use. So that's one of our number one jobs from just an engineering perspective, that there'd be no code required, which I mentioned earlier, but also really easy to understand. When you look at it, it's pretty self-explanatory. And at the same time, if they ever need any help with support, that we would provide any answers they had the questions. So the onboarding part was very seamless.
Right. So for the smaller food pantries, there are a lot more smaller to medium-sized food pantries than there are larger food pantries. And for the larger food pantries, we applaud them. They may have some technology assistance, but for the smaller to medium-sized food pantries, which are neighborhood-based or community-based, there's a difference there. We have found out that there are people who would like to go to smaller to medium-sized food pantries for many reasons. Some of them, and this is what we gathered, some of them, they feel like they are part of the community. They are not lost in just being a person in the line, but actually it's more personable, it's more relational. And with Faith Hope and Love, that's really what we do. As what Ryan mentioned, from the very beginning, we say it's not about food, it's about people. We look at food pantries as gateway to communities, but what we found out is that it became just like a food distribution to people. But we know that being food insecure, and also people who are in need of food, uh, food is not the only answer. It's an answer, but really for us, the answer is people. Because without people, who's going to operate the food pantry? Who's going to donate? Who's going to do all these things? You may have a lot of food. And actually, I've seen food pantries that close not because of lack of food, but because of lack of people or even lack of vision. So let's talk about vision, Ryan. The you have analyzed, the principles of faith, hope, and love, and you have known me for over 20 years. That really we want to transform lives. So how can the software, the reporting of the software, help if I am a food pantry manager or a food pantry director? How could it help me to help people beyond just giving that the food, that transactional thing that, okay, well, it's food pantry day, here's your food, and see you next time. So how could this software help me as a food pantry director to help people beyond just food, and hopefully move on for a more sustainable lifestyle?
Well, first of all, you asked about vision.
Mhm.
And one thing I remember when we created SALTview, like even our original conversations, is that we wanted to create it to have equitable access to food for all. So we could go back to the point about addressing food insecurity, which ultimately is addressing the whole cycle of poverty.
Mhm.
And so from that perspective, one thing was talked about in often the planning meetings, Stephen, before we even decided we were going to build this software, was that we were going to put people first and not technology. So it's the conversation quickly turned toward how can we use the technology to free up the time of the people that are serving the recipients at the smaller food pantries, so they're not busy, either collecting data or doing things manual, or even making reports they send to you, and however you guys then calculate that. And how can we free up the time? That was a real focus area, freeing up the time for the food pantry organizers and the volunteers at the actual night or the day of their pantries, to allow them to have the interaction with the people, so they could, sometimes people go to the food pantries not just for the food, but they're going there for the connections and other resources, because they can be freed up this other time. They not only can, get food to address that reason they're there, but also to get other resources. They may need help in other areas. So the goal here was to, again, help the people that work there, to basically allow them to have the time they need to serve the people. So it's less about the intake form, right? The household, what's your name, what's your household, and other information they collect, and free that time up so they can then focus on the time they have with that individual, so they feel that they're listened, that they're heard, right? And their needs are being met.
Mhm.
So I'd have to say this is helping them transform away from like kind of busy work that you usually do, and making it systematic, automating the reporting that goes along with that, and then allowing them to have the time there while they're there with the people, to be with the people. And that also includes what are their needs. Like, do they have, from a food as medicine perspective, do they have areas of, well, maybe they have gluten, related gluten-free, they might have allergies, or they might have food preferences and things like that overall address so it's not just here's your, your packaged food and processed food, whatever other kind of food you have, but you might have more time to get the information you need to now address, I think, what the future of pantry is going to be like.
Mhm.
As wellness continues as a piece of it, how food as medicine can affect their overall health and well-being, about wellness. So we're excited that SALTview can take a role, particularly Faith, Home, and Love, in this launch to be able to more effectively address that with food as medicine, overall health and wellness as an individual, both mind and body, right?
Okay. Tell us from the technical point of view, technology point of view. I think you touched base a little bit as far as the importance of data, but could you elaborate more as far as the data that we will be collecting, and then store them safely, and then use that data as far as like connecting people with other resources, or maybe funding for the food pantry? Could you tell us more about the data, the importance of data, and also the use of the data? Sometimes we collect data and it just stay in our filing cabinets, and then nothing happens. So could you tell us more about that?
first of all, Didsbridge is focused on, really, we're a privacy first company, and that means we always respect all the data collected, and we're on the side of like all the privacy laws and respecting everybody's right to, having that data protected. And also, most importantly, when you share that data, you trust whoever you're giving that data to. So that's why over time there's been all types of talk about privacy and what's different groups do with my data. So first of all, when it comes to SALTview, we don't collect anything type of information that would be something that can be used for my healthcare, any of that kind of stuff. It's all anonymized. It's not something where you can identify an individual, and things like, for example, you asked about data collected. You want to know as a pantry, how many households am I serving?
Mm-hmm.
What area codes are households coming from?
Mm-hmm.
What size of families are in these households, or different members? Then how often maybe they may be coming to different locations that you're at. Like, are they first time, attendees, first time recipients, or they've been someone that comes here, on a regular basis? So the key to the data is, what story are we trying to tell, right? And in that way, we know when people will typically submit for either fundraising or donors. In that case, they want to know what needs am I addressing, and then they want to know what data supports that story. That once I, put my money into this cause, or maybe it's a city planning and support grants, like you mentioned, then how do I know it's making a difference? So the reporting is designed around, from a disclosure perspective, because everybody's, guarding what they share, right? It's designed only to help better serve the recipients. There's no private details, personal identifiable data being shared with anybody, no outside third parties seeing it. And if there is a report, it's completely anonymized. And for example, you might know, back to your question, how many females in this age group are in this zip code, right? And then how many households in a certain time period, looking at, say, a weekly report, did we serve? Any of those kind of areas that are basically anonymized, but also helpful, especially for city planning, just like you do in real estate, any type of, government grants may ask questions like that. They want to know demographic information, like what ethnicities are there. And then that allows us to further ask more questions and different, maybe there's different food requirements and needs then. And we might need to get a different type of food supply. So you've been, as Merlin's basically described throughout this whole interview, I'm newer at this food pantry space, got a chance to, dive feet first into it over this past year. So I'm just learning.
Yeah.
But I do know it's in a transformational place right now, with more or less tailoring different types of food, right, to different individuals. So the more data we can collect, maybe areas we haven't even asked questions about yet, that may affect, like, is there diabetes? Is there a chance that down the road, we can meet dietary needs and things like that. We can partner with different other, say, I don't know, hospitals in the area that have questions. And maybe they want us to ask a survey or something like that within those relationships, so we can get more information. So there's lots of openings with the data, as long as we're treating it back to the very beginning of Didsbridge. We're always privacy focused first. Respect and trust is like at the hallmark of all that. And at the end of the day, it allows us to use the data to tell the story we need to tell in order to, prove, because a lot of this is about accountability. That was in the word, the SALT, is making them more accountable for that, so to their stakeholders. And that's what we set out with SALTview, to make really a streamlined experience and eased access without you guys at Faith of Love doing all this manual work and labor.
Right. So that's Ryan touched base a lot of items there. One, first of all, is the data protection, and yeah, we want to keep the privacy of individuals, and sometimes having, and we've done it in the past, having like the physical, intake form and everything, and sometimes it just get, put somewhere, and people might get hold of it, or maybe if we don't destroy the files after a few years, then that's part of the advantage of using the SALTview software. Also, the importance. Ryan talked about the demographics, and how can we help an individual if we don't really know some of the factors of being food insecure. Yes, we can provide them bags of food, but bags of food would just last for like 3 days. And then what happened after 3 days, right? So now, granted that there are some people that they will need it because of age, maybe, or maybe physical, mental disability. Yes, we will help them, but m- majority of the people who use food pantry have you know um, have brighter future, or they can be self-sustained in the future, and that's what the accountability that you're talking about. We need to be accountable not just for the funders, but also we want to implant that accountability, personal accountability, to people. Not that it's like a condition before we feed them or we give them food, but what if we ask one question, or we found out something in the information that they gave us, that maybe this individual may need addiction counseling. That could affect, right? If you are addicted to something, say drugs or whatever, then that will affect not just physically, emotionally, mentally, but also your decision making. We have seen people who are addicted, really heavily addicted to drugs, that they may do some petty crimes, or even go accelerate in a bigger crime, maybe abuse to the family, to the spouses, or to the children. And then, what about employment? What about if we find out that this individual has really great education or experience, and maybe some of our food pantry volunteers, we can connect them with some better employment. So or maybe if you are serving a lot of, say, different races, like 30% are Latinos, 40% are African Americans, 60% are white, or maybe 20% are senior citizen. What can you do with senior citizen? Maybe if you are at church, you can do senior citizen program, right? Those are what we have been doing for many many years. But again, it could be tedious task, gathering those data and then creating the reports that we need efficiently and also effectively. Also, you talk about food as medicine, and last year we worked with a healthcare organization. Well, actually, this year, early part of this year, and we call it FEEDS, Food Insecurity Improvement for Dietary Specification, specifically targeted for the diabetic patients who are food insecure. And we were successful in doing that. And because of that, now we are working with diabetes improvement program by IU Health, which is again called DIPIN. So food is a it's not just providing food as a food pantry, but actually helping the individual families. So Ryan, there are things here that we have a lot to talk about. The SALTview, you know, better data means increased accountability for donors.
Yep.
So you touch base a little bit as far as the funding, right? And I know we have leaders in the government, in the foundation, that talk to Faith Hope and Love about some pantries are not receiving funding because of, as you mentioned, accountability and also reporting. So tell us, not necessarily in details, but a big overview. How, if I am a food pantry, why is this software needed for me, not as an expense, but as an investment?
Well, first of all, the starting point you just asked about was accountability is a word.
Mhm.
Now, remember, this came about, if you recall, back in during all the COVID times. There was a little bit of concern about how money was being used. There was a lot of these government dollars being granted to different organizations for how they use these funds.
Mhm.
And so we got to a conversation with you, even is like, once people start doing these food pantries that you're leading and training, and they start using the software. Because up to this point, you were doing some of the stuff manual before we started to really have this conversation about developing SALTview. And that was part of that year-long analysis, really, about looking at all the processes, visiting the pantries from the top down, and said, well, what type of information you need in the first place to get these grant dollars? So it's not just about collecting data, it's about correcting or collecting the correct data in order to tell that story I mentioned earlier. So from a SALTview perspective, looking at not just looking at different standardized reports, right? And things you've used in the past that you even use now, you report for different, different organizations, foundations, and stuff like that. They have things you fill out, which I'm sure, you don't, and everybody on here has probably filled out those forms too. We wanted to look at those types of forms and the data gathered and make sure we were collecting the right data. So SALTview is designed around taking all that work and thinking out of that, so it's already done for you. So that information is the correct data you need for submitting to the grants and to the foundations. And most importantly, the data doesn't just tell that story. It over time, it tells a story. You can start to look at the duration of time and see how it shifts, and data becomes more valuable over time. So this allows you quick access to it.
Mhm.
We often like to say all the data exists somewhere in the Library of Congress. Nobody has time to go there and get it. So
Right.
back to the reporting and automation, overall, it's about making it easy so you can get it when you need it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then ultimately take it out, get your report, and then you can submit that with your grant proposals or fundraisers or updates and where it's, where that funding, how it's making an impact. Because at the end of the day, everybody's doing this back to the vision, to achieve that vision, which is to, in the case of Faith, Hope, and Love, and what we're doing, food insecurity, our goal is have nobody coming to food pantries anymore, because we're doing everything we can to meet the needs. It's the overall goal is to end the cycle of poverty.
Right.
And these are just tools to help empower smaller pantries to help make a big impact there, because most people don't know that even though larger organizations, everybody knows their names and everything, the smaller food pantries do a lot of the serving, but they don't have access as much of the dollars available, because there's only so much to go around. And we're doing our best to, especially if they have smaller IT teams and be equipped, we're doing our best to help them, especially like Latino areas, different kind of communities
Mhm.
that are, they're growing, right? There's new ones, new food pantries, forming all the time to meet different needs. So we're here to help support all these growing needs, and particularly give them the kind of data they need, back to your question about reports and timely access to it. And most importantly, reduce error, because data is as important as true it is. So rather than getting the printed type of stuff you did in the past, where you handwritten and typed out in Excel files and trying to consolidate all that, this just brings it all into a centralized system. It makes it easy. And that was really the goal.
Yes. So, we're talking about data, but again, these are our tools that we use so that we can help the individuals. Again, it's about people, but we cannot help people effectively and efficiently if we don't know their individual stories, as you mentioned. there's a story of your food pantry, but also there's a story of an individual. But again, the data, or let's just say the information, the necessary information that we gather will equip the food pantry, staff, volunteers to help people beyond food. Because again, you and I know food is an answer, but it's not the ultimate answer to food insecurity. What if we can actually, a lot of times now it's you talk about prevention, right? You talk about nutrition security. Now we're talking about not just food security, but nutrition security, because now we're evolving. And that's part of what the evolution of faith, hope, and love is, that we know from the very beginning that data and information is needed, that training is needed, because just look at the successful businesses. They invest a lot in the training first, so that they will have a strong foundation for the success and sustainability of their organization. However, in some nonprofit and even in some of the food pantries, they invest more in the food rather than in people. I tell you what, the solution is people, and part of the problem is also people. So, in the land of plenty, right? In the land of plenty, where we throw more food than what we give away, what about if we can really harness that? What about if we can collect those information of how we can bring the community together to help one another? This is not just, as what Ryan was saying earlier. The solution does not just depend on food pantry. The solution does not just depend on food banks. The solution does not depend necessarily on government. The solution is a community of people that work together. And the information that we gather will provide information to the community, so that now, if I'm a business person, I can say, oh, I didn't know that until, Faith, Hope, and Love through software, SALTview software told this story. Then now I can help. Maybe I can send my employees to help this food pantry, which is just around the corner, never don't even know it exists. And also now I know their story, I know what they do, so now I can plug in to help out this food pantry. So Ryan, we have just a couple more minutes. Is there anything that you would like to mention as far as the summary about this? Why is SALTview software needed, and the features and the benefits and the gaps that you see?
One thing I would mention in terms of things we covered in helping to secure funding with, as we kind of went over, reporting more accurate data, reducing human error, and also for easy access reporting, and always about secure data privacy first, and making sure people are comfortable in sharing that data at the food pantries they visit, and also all the food pantries that through SALTview, Faith Home Love serves.
Mhm.
But also remind the audience that we have a video that goes through that we just launched
Okay.
because we got a groups of pantries basically starting to use this now, which we're very excited about from the time it started development. And you can tell your audience about the video on saltview.com. It really give a lot of these kind of features and benefits on there that it's really tells a clear story about the need and why SALTview was created as a software.
Mhm.
And so probably mention that to them. It has some of those points on it. But I think even though it's about technology in today, SALTview is about making it more equitable food access to address that food insecurity gap and end the life cycles of poverty, all related to, because food's a higher need, and if people don't have those needs actually met, then there's more crime and other things related to that. So it's one of those needs at the top of the, I guess the human experience, right? That they're gonna, it's gonna be related to those types of actions. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about ease of use, right? Which we covered many a times. low level of entry for training and or knowledge of any type of technical experience. So I think those are real key parts of it. And also from a fundraising city planning perspective, like what are they looking for? So I'm going to try to get a grant and secure these funds. That's the other thing about it, is this software automatically set up to give you the kind of data you need in a timely fashion for those, especially for small pantries, may not have that kind of IT team and resources and budget to build something out like this. I mean, it's maybe I want to build software out there. There's layers to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And phases to it and new features that get rolled out to it. So it's an ongoing process. And the great thing with SALTview, we'll be there to support each of the food pantries like every step of the way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you, Ryan, for giving us insights into this SALTview software. So again, this is the vision that I had even before pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I've been thinking about creating a software, and then pandemic hit, and then the more we need the data, the information in order for us to help people beyond just bag of food. And again, they are the main recipients of this. But in order for us to be effective and efficient in helping people more effectively, we need to equip and provide tools to our food pantries. We need to provide the training necessary for the volunteers. Because again, if the volunteers and the staff are not trained properly, or they don't really know, then we do the same thing over and over again. We need to evolve. We start really learning to improving what we have done in the past, and then to continue that development and how we can help people beyond, again, just bags of food. So next time, probably if we have time, we're going to talk more as far as the mechanics of SALTview, how some of the details and really the feature, as what Ryan mentioned, the benefits of it. So I'm going to put the video on our website, but also it's on the LinkedIn and Facebook. But you can actually access it even now. You can just go to saltview.com, and then there's a great video there that tells about this one-of-a-kind software. So we're really excited about it. I believe it's the only one of its kind in the nation, and we're looking forward to launch this in the next next couple of months probably. And so thank you so much for being with us. And again, it's saltview.com, and we're looking forward to serve you through the use of this software in the future.
You might want to mention to the audience that we're proud that it's Indiana made, Indianapolis. I mean, job creation growth. We're very excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Silicon Valley innovation. It's something right here,
right
in Indiana,
That's true.
which we work closely with local leaders and different areas of supporters within government here, and for both job growth and economic development. So we're very excited from that perspective too, because the more jobs we can have, the less people are going to come to food pantries in the whole first place to address that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's exciting to be able to build something like that right here in Indiana, and with the support of all local government, community leaders, and it's very exciting to be able to help in our own, your own backyard. Back to what
Right.
Nathan Lovell talks about, to build it here in Indiana.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, it's built right here in Indiana. So we hope if you are a business, or maybe a government, or a funder, we still need to fund the continued development of this software. So you can email me, Merlin at FHL International, if you have any questions about SALTview, and also how you can be part of the solution in the sustainability of our people.
Yep.
All right. God bless you, and we'll see you again in the near future.